Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Ragasudha, Head and Assistant Professor, Department of Microbiology, Government City College, Hyderabad, is here to talk on antigen antibody reactions. The antigen antibody interaction is highly specific biomolecular association which involves various non-covalent interactions between the antigen epitope and variable region of the antibody molecule, especially the hypervariable region or the complementary determining region, in short known as CDRs. These antigen antibody reactions are the basis for humoral immunity or antibody mediated immune response. The non covalent interactions that form the basis for antigen antibody binding includes hydrogen bonds, ionic bonds, hydrophobic interactions, and van der Waals interactions. Antigen antibody interactions depend on these four types of non covalent interactions. Further, the interactions operate over a very short distance via 1 angstrom. Therefore, a strong antigen antibody interactions depend on very close fit between the antigen and antibody regions involved. This requirement is the basis for very high degree of specific characteristics of antigen antibody interaction. Binding sites of antigen and antibody during interactions. In this interaction or reaction, the antibody attaches with the antigen. The part of the antigen which combines with the antibody is called epitope or antigenic determinants. An antigen may contain 10 to 50 antigenic determinants. Sometimes it may go up to 200. While the part of the antibody which combines with the antigen is called paratope or antigen binding site. Most of the antibodies are bivalent, having two binding sites, but the antibodies of IgM is a multivalent, having 5 to 10 binding sites. Antigen antibody interaction strength is dependent on three main factors, namely antibody affinity, antibody avidity, and cross reaction. Antibody affinity. The combined strength of all non covalent interactions between a single antigen binding site of an antibody and a single epitope of the antigen is called affinity of that antibody for the concerned epitope. Lower affinity leads to weak bonding, high affinity gives a longer antigen antibody complex. The strength of antigen antibody reactions is measured by the non covalent interactions that form the basis for the antigen antibody binding, including hydrogen bonds, ionic bonds, hydrophobic interactions, and van der Waals interactions. The diagram shows the interaction between an antigen and antibody and the types of bonds. The first one is hydrogen bond, followed by ionic bond, hydrophobic interactions, van der Waals interactions, and ionic bonds. The next characteristic for the interaction is antibody avidity. Many antigens are complex antigens in that they have multiple repeated epitopes. Further, the interaction between such an antibody molecule and a complex antigen molecule at one binding site will increase the probability of reaction between them at a second binding site. The avidity of an antibody is a better measure of its binding capacity within biological systems such as epitopes on a virus or a bacterial cell than the affinity of its individual binding sites. This is because a high avidity can compensate for a lower affinity. The third characteristic is when an antibody is elicited by one antigen, precisely an immunogen, reacts with an unrelated antigen, it is called cross reaction. Cross reaction occurs when two unrelated antigens have an identical or very similar epitopes. When the epitopes are similar, the affinity for the antibody for the cross reaction epitope is usually lesser than that of the original epitope, which elicits this antibody. Cross reactivity is often encountered in cases of polysaccharide antigens that contain similar oligosaccharide residues. ABO blood grouping antigens present an excellent example for cross reactivity. It is a common knowledge that A blood group individuals contain in their serum antibodies specific to antigen B, anti-B. Those of B group have anti-A, while O blood group individuals have both anti-A and anti-B. These antibodies are not induced by an exposure to the concerned antigen themselves. In fact, they are induced by an exposure to the cross-reacting microbial antigens present on a common intestinal bacteria. A number of viruses and bacteria have epitopes identical or very similar to the normal host cell components. Sometimes that such microbes elicit antibodies that may lead to tissue damaging or autoimmune reactions. Moving on to types of antigen antibody reactions. In vitro antigen antibody reactions are referred to as serological reactions or serology. While going through antigen antibody reactions, we come across four types of reactions, namely precipitation, agglutination, complement fixation, and neutralization. Precipitation, agglutination, and complement fixation are in vitro methods, while neutralization is a in vivo method of antigen antibody interaction or reactions. Let us begin with precipitation reaction. In precipitation reaction, when a soluble antigen combines with its antibody in presence of an electrolyte, namely sodium chloride, at a particular temperature and pH, it forms an insoluble precipitate of antigen antibody complex. The antibody causing precipitation is called precipitin, and the reaction is known as precipitation reaction. In the picture, we can see antibodies, Y-shaped antibodies interacting with antigens forming a complex. The principle behind precipitation reaction is soluble antigen reacts with antibody to produce a visible precipitate. The precipitate is formed due to lattice formation. Antigen binds with FAB sites of two antibodies forming a lattice structure. Functions of precipitation reaction. Precipitation occurs in two media, liquid or gel. Precipitation in liquid. Antigen antibody reactions performed by placing a constant amount of antibody in a series of tubes and adding increasing amount of antigen. Here the antigen antibody reaction is obtained while taking constant amount of antibodies in various tubes. In a series of tubes, same amount of antibodies will be added, to which increasing amount of antigen will be added. Antigen antibody reaction together results in precipitation. Plotting the amount of precipitation against increasing antigen concentration yields a precipitation curve as shown in the picture. So the interaction between the antigen and antibody is more at the equivalence zone, where the number of antibodies and antigens are almost equal. Whereas on the either end, we can see antibody excess zone and antigen excess zone, where the interaction is very less. This is a tube test. The same experiment can be observed in a tube in this manner, where the bottom region is rich with antibodies and the surface region is rich with antigens, and the junction we can see zone of equivalence with a visible precipitate. The precipitate is visible because high concentrations of both antigen and antibody. The precipitation curve shows three zones: zone of antibody axis, zone of equivalence, and zone of antigen axis. Moving on to precipitation in gel. Gel precipitation is obtained by radial immunodiffusion, also known as Mancini. In these methods, agar gels or similar gels are used on plates or Petri plates. Instead of tube here, we will be performing the experiment on a Petri plate with agar gels or silica gels. Both antigen and antibody diffuse freely in the gel system in all directions. At a certain point, depending on the rate of diffusion and concentration of the reactants, namely antigen and antibody, a zone of equivalence will be formed, which is seen as a visible precipitation. If antigen or antibody precipitations are complex, multiple bands are formed. These are again of two types: single diffusion method and double diffusion method. In the picture we can see radial immunodiffusion, where the antigen is kept in a well or added into a well at the center of the Petri plate, whereas antibodies are incorporated in the agar uniformly, so that a precipitation ring is formed where the interaction between the antigen and antibody occurs, so forming a precipitation ring. The below diagram is a double immunodiffusion method, where here increased amount of antigen at one side of the plate will be added with antibodies, and the other side of the plate will be added with an antigen, and the region where these two they diffuse into the media and they interact at a particular region where the precipitation will be formed and will be visible on the gel plate. Double immunodiffusion. This method is also called as Auchterlonie double immunodiffusion method. In this, both antigen and antibody diffuse independently through agar gel in two dimensions, that is horizontally and vertically. This is an important method wherein students will come across in practicals too. The procedure is: wells are cut in agar gel poured in glass slides or Petri dishes. Antiserums containing antibody are poured in the central well. Different antigens are added to its surrounding wells. After incubation, the line of precipitation is formed at the site of combination of antigen and antibody. In double diffusion method, single antibody is used against different types of antigens. Three types of lines. The possibility of forming three types of lines is observed in this particular experiment. A junction forming an arc. Arc between an antibody and two antigens indicates presence of common epitope in the two antigens. We can say that the antigens are identical. A cross line indicates no common epitopes between the compared antigens. A fusion of lines with a spur indicates cross reaction or partial identity. Thus, using this method, we can identify the type of antigens, whether they are identical, non-identical, or partially identical. It is used to demonstrate antibodies in diagnosis of smallpox, identification of fungal antigens, detection of antibodies to extract nuclear antigens. The next method of antigen antibody reactions is agglutination. It is the interaction between antibody and particulate antigen or insoluble antigen results in visible clumps called agglutination. On comparison with precipitation, there the antigen is soluble antigen, here it is insoluble antigen or particulate antigen, which results in formation of agglutination. Antigens include bacteria, white blood cells, red blood cells, lattice particles. The antibody of the serum causes the cellular antigen to form clumps, and these are known as agglutinins. The particulate antigens that are aggregated are termed as agglutinogens. Agglutination can be performed in a tube or a glass slide. Example, ABO blood grouping, which is done on a glass slide. Antibody is divalent and cross-links the multivalent antigen to form clumps. Agglutination reaction in detail. When a particulate antigen is mixed with its antibody in the presence of the electrolytes at a suitable temperature and pH, the particles are clumped or agglutinated. The antibody of the serum causes the cellular antigen to form clumps, and these are called agglutinins. The particulate antigen that are aggregated are termed as agglutinogens. Slide agglutination is a rapid method to determine the presence of agglutinating antibodies. This is a slide agglutination test wherein we can observe the agglutination by adding antigen and antibodies. To a uniform suspension of particular antigen, a drop of saline is added, then a drop of antiserum is added. The slide is gently rocked or a fine loop is used to mix the contents. If granulation occurs, the test is positive. It takes a minute for the test to complete and visible to the naked eye. Sometimes confirmation may be done by using a microscope. This test is used for blood grouping and cross matching. Blood grouping, we can see, we know that antigen type A blood groups have A agglutinogens, B have B agglutinogens, AB have both A and B, whereas O group has no agglutinogens. The antibodies produced for A are B agglutinins. For B it is A agglutinins, whereas type AB has no agglutinins, whereas O has A and B agglutinins. Heme agglutination test. Here the patient sample having the antigen, the patient sample has human IgG expressing Ig1 epitopes. When it reacts with the anti-human IgG1 epitope specific antibodies, the RBC is not hemolyzed. So we do not see any agglutination. Whereas the patient samples with human IgG with other heavy chain isotopes, when it reacts with the G1 epitope specific antibodies, as it is not for as the patient sample do not have IgG specific isotope, it will not react with the antibodies, and the antibodies are free to react with the RBC and results in formation of agglutination, which is a negative test. So here what we have to remember is no agglutination is a positive test, agglutination is a negative test. The patient sample, if it bears G1, RBC has G1 epitope, and if the patient sample also have G1 epitope, no agglutination will be there. If the patient sample does not have any G1 epitope, then agglutination is observed. Tube agglutination is a standard method for quantitative estimation of antibodies. The serum containing antibody is diluted serially with saline in several small test tubes to which a constant volume of antigen suspension is added. So here dilutions of antibody is tested against constant volume of antigen. A control tube is kept which has no antiserum. The tubes are incubated until visible agglutination is observed. Tube showing highest agglutination is referred to as the titer. Tube agglutination is employed for serological diagnosis of typhoid, brucellosis, typhus fever, etc. In laboratory, we perform the same test for Widal test. This is a picture which is showing different dilutions of the antibody with constant antigen. The tube with 1 by 20, 1 by 40, 1 by 80 and 1 by 160 shows positive agglutination, whereas the remaining dilutions has no agglutination. So the titer here will be 1 by 160. Passive agglutination test. It is similar to heme agglutination test, but the physical nature of the reaction is altered. The antigen is coated on the surface of a carrier particle and thereby helps to convert a precipitate reaction into an agglutination reaction, making the reaction more sensitive. The carrier particles used can be RBC, latex particles, or bentonite. Sometimes RBC coated with polystyrene are also used. When patient serum is mixed with these, it leads to agglutination. This test is used for diagnosing rheumatoid arthritis. So instead of producing a precipitate, their test is interested in producing an agglutination obtained by using a carrier particle. Carrier particle is added to soluble antigen producing coated particles. Coated particles reacts with antibody to form agglutination. The next experiment or next test interaction is known as complement fixation. Lysis of RBC or bacteria requires some non-specific unstable components of fresh serum which are known as complement. This complement system comprises of 11 proteins and are present in every individual. They bind to Fc component of antibody involved in antigen antibody complex. This ability of antigen antibody complex to fix complement is used in complement fixation test. The first stage, the test antigen and the anti-serum heated at 56 degrees centigrade to inactivate the complement are mixed in presence of a known amount of complement and incubated at 4 degrees centigrade for 18 hours. If antibody specific for antigen is present in the serum, antigen antibody complex will be formed that will fix the complement. The next experiment or the next reaction is neutralization. Neutralization is an in vivo method. Certain antibodies called neutralizing antibodies react with antigen and neutralize them so that they fail to attack on host cell surfaces. To cause infection, viruses must bind to receptors on the host cell. Antiviral antibodies can neutralize viral infections by coating the virons or blocking the binding. This activity neutralizes virons and can result in formation of large antibody virus complexes which are readily removed by phagocytosis or by antibody binding to the virus and blocking its binding to the host cell receptors. This neutralization activity is the basis of neutralization assay or sensitive assays used for diagnosis of viral infections. Neutralization reaction can occur in vitro or in vivo. Laboratory animals or tissue culture cells are used as indicator systems in neutralization test. The toxin or virus to be assayed should have known effects on the indicator system which is neutralized by using antitoxins. Antitoxin is nothing but an antiserum containing an antibody that neutralizes the toxin. So neutralization is a technique used for neutralization of toxins produced by the infectious microorganisms. Cells in presence of toxic molecules are damaged. These toxins in presence of antitoxins bind to the toxin and neutralize them so that cell is not damaged. Neutralization of a microbial toxin by a specific antibody occurs when the toxin and specific antibody combines in such a way that the active portion of the toxin is blocked. Neutralization reactions can block the effect of many bacterial exotoxins. Examples for toxin antitoxin neutralization tests include Chick test and Naegler's reaction. Chick test, it is a diphtheria toxin antitoxin neutralization test done to assess the immune status of a person. It was used in the past to know the susceptibility of individuals to Corynebacterium diphtheriae. The test is performed by intradermal injection of 0.1 milliliter of purified standard toxin. If the patient has no antitoxins, the toxin will cause inflammation at the site for 4 to 7 days later. If no inflammation occurs, antitoxin is present and the person is immune. The next test is Naegler's reaction, where opalescence on young old agar produced by alpha toxin of Clostridium perfringensis is inhibited when anti-alpha toxin is added to the medium, which neutralizes the alpha toxin. Applications of neutralization test. Antitoxin therapy is used in the medicine to neutralize the toxins of Corynebacterium diphtheriae, Clostridium tetani, and Clostridium botulinum to prevent the development of diphtheria, tetanus, and botulism respectively. Thank you.